Chapter 9. The Cooperatist Party. With the success of the Alpha City project, cooperatists became more numerous in Belgium. The resort complex brought a great deal of more attention to and awareness of cooperatism. It was frequently mentioned in the news, and its promotional and advertising campaigns kept it constantly in the public eye. Visitors could not help but compare and contrast the Alpha City environment to what they were living in the outside world, and had to wonder if what they observed in Alpha City might have some sort of relevance to society at large. We quote now from two different respected political journalists of the time. These two excerpts enjoyed a great deal of worldwide circulation and were frequently quoted among those with cooperatist views. One writes, quote, "People want less stress, less worry, less mandatory participation in the continual rat race of modern humanity. There is an undercurrent of dissatisfaction that is slowly brewing in the world. Because of the internet, people now have instant access to information worldwide, and the common man is using this technology to bond with other middle and lower class people around the world, regardless of nationality, race, religion, or ideology. There is a growing camaraderie of common people who are tired of governments and economies and taxes and being manipulated by policies and corporations." End quote. The other says this, quote, "People are coming to realize that a great deal of their lives and toil are controlled and tied to a system that does not particularly benefit the common man, but rather uses the common man in a process of creating wealth and power for those who have aspirations to attain it. They are coming to realize that it is a system that isn't about the betterment of humanity and making life more fulfilling and meaningful for everyone, but rather making ordinary people subjects of a ruthless money game that inevitably causes poverty, greed, and corruption, and allows power to be wielded by those who attain it at the expense of the working class. People are coming to realize that there are others like them all over the world who are unfairly labeled by what their governments do and really have more in common with each other than what is portrayed in the media, regardless of whether they live in a capitalist, socialist, or communist society." End quote. Cooperatism became a glimmer of hope for an increasing number of people. The success of Alpha City brought that hope closer. In Belgium, the reality of that hope was more tangible and visible. Alpha City represented a glimpse of a possible future, making cooperatism more accessible, more realistic, and less idealistic. Many began to rethink their initial judgments of the system and began to see it as more practical than what they had first thought. These new ideas and ideals were able to cross the political and cultural factions that had divided Belgium for so long. A growing constituency of cooperatists were uniting under a formal cooperatist party. It drew supporters from all three Belgian factions, Dutch, German, and French, and began to unify members of these various divisions under a shared political agenda. It had to be dealt with cautiously, if not seriously, by those vying for public office, and required careful posturing in order to gain the support of these voters. Proposals such as loosening restrictions and policies with regard to Alpha City's building and operating regulations and restructuring the tax code as it applied to Alpha City's unique workforce situation were lobbied for by the members of this new party. However, the majority of the people still resisted the idea of the entire country moving in a cooperatist direction. They were proud of Alpha City's reputation and international fame, but more so as a unique novelty as opposed to some sort of viable option for the nation as a whole. A party member writes, quote, "Those that are wealthy are generally not affiliated with this new party. They are the ones that feel most threatened by this system. believing that their happiness is a direct result of their wealth. But even in the middle and lower classes, people are wary of throwing their support behind this unorthodox system. Despite Alpha City's success, they are skeptical and fearful of a national change to cooperatism. This is entirely understandable, and no matter how many financial hardships the money system thrusts upon them, they don't want to risk what little they still are able to hold on to. The money system is known and familiar, and as such, gives them a degree of comfort, whereas cooperatism is forging into the unknown." End quote. Yet there were those in the wealthy upper class who, for a variety of personal reasons, became supporters of cooperatism and stood in favor of it, carrying on the legacy of Jordan LaMarche and Carl Henderson, among others. These individuals became pivotal leaders within the movement and were crucial to cooperatism gaining influence domestically as well as internationally. Alpha City continued to expand its boundaries, influence, and clientele. And along with this expansion, the Cooperatist Party gained more voter support. Its platform was to develop and implement a plan for Belgium to gradually grandfather in a national conversion. A League and Party member of the time writes this, quote, "We began considering the immense complexities of converting the established systems, industries, and commerce of already existing cities into a cooperatism system. This task was not only daunting, but seemed all but impossible. The money system was too well entrenched to be uprooted without some sort of unilateral agreement and cooperation from a united populace. That was clear. And we were not even close to having that type of unilateral support. So we were trying to be proactive. If the day ever came when the nation was behind this national transition, we wanted to be ready with a plan." End quote. Cooperatist parties began to spring up in other Western countries as well, such as France, the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Canada, the United States, and Australia. The ones in Europe were the most active because of their close proximity to Alpha City. They had the greatest number of people visiting the city on a regular basis. Another party and league member writes this, quote, "Alpha City was the single largest factor in getting people to consider cooperatism. But trying to start another cooperative complex elsewhere in Belgium or Europe was logistically and financially impossible. The circumstances that allowed Alpha City to flourish and develop were quite unique and not easily duplicatable. Our focus became keeping cooperatism on the table politically, being a voice, keeping people aware of it, and to continually push for favorable legislation with regard to Alpha City's unique circumstances." End quote. The Cooperatist Party met staunch opposition, which considered cooperatists, in the words of an opposing politician of the time, well-meaning but impractical idealists whose socialistic tendencies and views should be tolerated, but who should never be allowed to run a country with their communal philosophies. End quote.